This has been sent over from Paul's family for me. It's a ginger cake recipe that was used by his grandma. So it's quite an old recipe, probably dating back to the 60s. Yeah, maybe even before that. So we have a small amount of butter, which is 60 grams, and we will be melting this. This is golden syrup, we all know it as, but I think its technical term is inverted sugar. But anyway, it's a golden syrup, and we will be putting that in the saucepan and melting it along with that butter. And what you need to weigh out is 125 grams, which I will weigh directly into the saucepan, because the moment you transfer it, you leave most of it behind. It's a very sticky product. The flour, I'm actually using spelt flour, so we can share it with Mike, who isn't very good with ordinary flour. And spelt flour is it's a sort of stickier type flour. This is the sugar that we've got 100 grams of this, and it's the darkest, stickiest sugar I can find. We have 1 egg, 125 grams of full cream milk. We take some of the ginger and some of the allspice. We've got here 1 heaped teaspoon. Well, I bought this in France and it's not quite as strong, so I shall be using 1.5 teaspoons of this. And the allspice came over with me, and that's 1/2 teaspoon. So we'll keep to that. And a little bit of the bicarbonate of soda. I think it's just a teaspoonful. Yes, it is. So that's our ingredient list. And it's an interesting recipe because you've got to produce something that involves syrup, so you need to melt it. But of course, if it's too hot, it will cook your egg. And then what we're trying to do is to put it in here, and because it's a very sticky mixture, I will be lining this. Now, yes, you can buy the liners for virtually nothing, but if that's all you've got, I just wanted to quickly show you, if you put it on there so that you can pull these up, because that way you can pull the cake out at the end and it's a lot easier. And take your scissors into the corners. So I've then buttered it. I now put my lining paper in, and I can literally put those pieces at the back. I'll see if you can see with this side. I put this piece in first because I find that easier, and take them into the corners, and then you can literally make a pretty well fitting liner. And it isn't very difficult. I know the books show you to take several sheets and lay them and you'll be there forever. That's a pretty good covering. You leave these higher because you can then pull them out. Some cakes, you need them cut back, because then what happens is the air can get to the top and make a crispy top with nuts and things like that. But for this one, it's absolutely fine. So we'll put that to the side, and we will measure out our syrup. So take off the weight of the saucepan, and what we're aiming for is 125 grams. This is already about half, so it's about there, I should imagine, but we've got to try and get it in there. 25, we're there. Now we take those over and we put it on here. This is my lowest light, and I'm putting it on pretty low as well. And here's my butter. A nice wooden spoon, and we are aiming I'm going to turn it up a bit because it is a very low light. The hum you can hear is the oven. I've set it for 160 degrees centigrade. Okay, that's fan. You would push it up a little bit if you didn't have fan. And you can see the butter melting into it now. Turning it down now because it's got very flowy, so I know that it's no longer viscous. I know that the syrup has got very warm, and I don't want it to hold too much residue heat because I want it to be cool enough not to cook my egg when it gets mixed. It smells a bit like toffee, which of course is very closely what it is. Now I'm turning it off because there's enough residue heat here to melt the last of the blobs. Okay, and now we're going to start over here. So the first thing I'm going to do is to move the things I don't need, and I don't need this. I'm going to put my flour and my allspice. Two teaspoons, well, 1.5 heaped teaspoons of ginger, and one teaspoon of bicarb of soda. Mix those up a little tiny bit. Now be careful because if you turn it on fast, it will fly everywhere. So just aiming to distribute it a little bit. Now I'm just going to give this the last of the, and as you can see, it's melted completely, and we'll transfer this to over here. Now I'm going to add the last of the dry ingredients, which is the sugar. And you can see the little lumps that are on the top. I'm just going to squeeze those out by hand. You could have used white caster sugar, which would avoid of all this. But the nice thing about using this beautiful brown cane sugar is that it has an incredible toffee. It's got a flavour, and it helps tremendously when you're cooking like this. And the lumps will come out with a bit of mixing, so it's not the end of the world. Now I'm going to add, we've got all our dry ingredients in. Now I'm going to add the milk and the egg. I like to get the very last of the egg out because the egg is an important ingredient. All the bubbles that you make, it helps add the protein which surrounds the bubbles, cooks and keeps the bubble shape, and that's what causes you to have a crumb. So you really need to look after your egg mixture. Right, we have now mixed this up, and now we have the last of our ingredients. As you can see, I put my hand underneath because I don't want it sticky all over me, but I can feel it's lukewarm. It's not hot. It does smell rather good though, doesn't it? And this is part of Paul's childhood. It is quite nice sometimes to go back to these old recipes and relive memories. So now we're going to mix that in again. Now that's it. That is the mixture. It is extremely wet. I think it's probably the wettest cake mixture I have ever used. And we will now try it. We're going to just pour it in. Well, there's nothing more to be done with it except to put it in. Now, what they told me was we pop it in the oven and we come back. Now, we're listening for a golden moment, and that is when the mixture stops bubbling. But if we cook it too long, because of its low fat content, it will go dry. We want a moist cake. So we'll come back after about 55 minutes and listen to see if it's still bubbling. All right. Well, let's have a look and see what we've got. It's been how long?
50 minutes.
50 minutes. Well, that to me looks like it's definitely well on the way to being a cake. Let's have a little look. Or should we do their trick that they recommended? Now, let's just do the first one we do. No, that's not done. Give it another 5 minutes. When a cake's done, it bounces back. You press it and it comes up, a bit like sponge. When a cake isn't done, you press it and it comes back a little bit. You need something that's resilient when you press on it. That's one thing. The other thing is you can stick something in it and see if it sticks. But this is a sticky mixture. That's probably not going to work very well. Another thing you can do is to listen as they said. And as this actually bubbles, and I could hear the bubbles, but then I thought, well, the butter would bubble against the side of the tin as well. And as I haven't got the experience of knowing a bubble from a bubble, I put it back in anyway. So there you are. Give it 5 more minutes and we'll test again, but we are close. Well, it's had its extra 5 minutes. So, now it is silent now. And look, can you see it's bouncing? Often you can bounce it here, but not here. And it is bouncing. So we're going to leave it for the 5 minutes. And then we're taking it out of its wrapper. And we're going to put it on a wire rack, which I haven't got out yet. Okay. It's actually been a bit under the 5 minutes. It's just, I'm a bit impatient. Now, as I said, you can just lift this out really easily with the paper. Now we need to just pull it and it just lifts off. It's a bit fragile because it's hot. Very hot.
Oh, some of us were a bit impatient.
Yes, we were. Okay, I'm going to turn it over and you can see it just rolls out of its paper. And you can see the leakage on here has stuck. I shall have to soak it off because I don't do anything nasty. These are Tupperware and horribly priced. But it has actually glued itself on. It will come off, but you don't have that problem if you put a piece of paper in. But I was a bit negligent in buying those ones that are already pre-made. So I'll put that over to soak. It will lift off very easy from those. They really work well. And if we're clever, we can roll it back over. And there you are. If I lift it up, you can see it nicely. That smells nice. And shall I just break a piece off for you? so you can see the texture, because I do want to try some. You can see it. It's turned into a cake, and it's hot. But I think we could eat a bit hot, couldn't we? Because it does look rather nice. I'm going to give you a little piece to try. Ow, hot, hot. It's pretty good, isn't it? And the ginger comes through afterwards. It's funny that the ginger comes through afterwards.
It's nice cake.
Nice cake. That's successful.